From the off, we know that the core idea of this film was to use the advances made in the past 43 years of filmmaking to embiggen the scale, and they've certainly achieved that to mixed results. The plot concerns a greedy oil tycoon going to Skull Island to drill up some oil they expect is there because of a mysterious fog wall that surrounds the island. Our core protagonist is Jack, played by Jeff Bridges, a primate paleontologist who sneaks aboard the boat to uncover the centuries-old mysteries that surround Skull Island. Along the way, they pick up Dwan, played by Jessica Lange in her first major role, an aspiring actress they find stranded on a lifeboat. From there, it's pretty much beat for beat the original movie. They find the indigenous people and their big-ass wall. Dwan is taken by them and offered as a sacrifice for Kong. Kong falls in love with her and kills a bunch of the crew members and is eventually taken to New York and killed. Whilst the core of the story is much the same, the characters are very different. They're all in different places in their lives and with very different motivations. It is still fundamentally a remake, but one that is recontextualized for the modern era. I think that making Kong a creature caught in the crossfire of shifting motivations, as the oil on the island turns out to be unusable, Kong is taken to New York as a marketing gimmick so that he's not returning empty-handed, rather than a core motivation of the people going to exploit the island for profit, does add an extra level of tragedy to the piece. Whilst the island itself would have been destroyed had the oil drilling gone ahead, Kong certainly wouldn't have suffered as much as he did, certainly not the humiliation. The film is tonally a lot of fun. It's plenty dramatic and ominous when it needs to be, but is also capable of being very funny when it needs to be as well, such as the repeated gag of the oil tycoon not being able to say anything without being immediately contradicted by the events of the film.
Let me straighten you out on a couple of points. One, this wall is an ancient ruin. Two, the island is uninhabited.
Now, three, there's an uninhabited German beer hall in there with a mechanical band.
I will say, the moment with the big gate opening doesn't quite work as well as the original for me, despite the increase in scale. I think that might partly be down to a different choice in camera angle, or the fact that the doors opened faster, or something even more intangible, but whatever it is, it feels less impressive. I'm curious to see how the master of the epic, Peter Jackson, decides to show this moment in his remake. Let's talk about Dwan, because I am really mixed on her. She is a really likeable character. Jessica Lange has a lot of charisma and was a really good choice for the role. However, she is mostly just a sex object, and I'm not saying that she's an especially bad sex object. Jessica Lange was chosen for the role for a reason, but she is only that for a lot of the film, and that is a shame. We are introduced to her character in the lifeboat in a very showy dress, and that tends to be the case for her costuming for a lot of the rest of the film too. She's repeatedly ogled by the crew of the boat, Kong and the camera, and I just wish there was some more to her character beyond this. Her character also seems to shift between precocious and delirious on a dime, and I wish I understood why that choice was made half the time. Kong is mostly represented by a man in a suit and some big hands here. About 15 seconds of the $500,000 animatronic show up in the film, but it's mostly just the man in a suit. When the shots are just Kong or just the hands, it looks great, but when it's with anything else, you can really tell this was made just before blue and green screen technologies got actually properly decent. This was released the year before Star Wars, and I think had this been released a couple of years later, it would have looked far better as a result. A lot of the elements are weirdly pale or have a big halo, and it never gets to the point where I can just overlook it and accept it. Kong's death is surprisingly effective in this film, with his heart not giving out the final thud that gives you a sense of incompletion, much like the screams cutting out in the original movie. It all works really well to hit you right in the gut. They also decided to remove the dinosaurs, which is a shame. There's one big snake, but it's just not the same. Apparently they did this because they didn't want to use stop motion on the film, which is a shame because I love me some stop motion, so this is just a big missed opportunity on their part. When it gets down to it, this is a decent update of the original film, albeit with some elements that I think could have been handled far better in my opinion. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this film overall, considering that its only lasting effect seems to be the Universal ride. Out of the Kong films, this seems to be the one that no one remembers. Certainly it's the only movie on this list that I had to import on Blu-ray, which I think is potentially a shame because there is a lot to like here.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing whatever to fear. That is an escape-proof cage, certified by the New York City
It's back to Gamera for a few movies now, starting with the definitive end of the Showa era on this list with Gamera Super Monster.